Hi, I'm Susan Baker.
Phyllis Rustifo.
My name is Jackie DeWeese.
My name is Michelle Dolinsky.
My name is Amanda Haas.
Audrey Sense, and I am the Toy and Resource Center Supervisor at United Disability Services.
I'm from the Stark County Educational Service Center.
And I'm an intervention specialist for Orange City Schools.
I'm a speech pathologist for Elyria City Schools.
I work for Lake County Board of DD. I'm a developmental specialist working with birth to 3 children with delays and disabilities.
I am a home instructor tutor for usually multiple handicapped students that need a little bit more work than what they can get at school, and they're not allowed to go to school due to their medical conditions.
So for the kids that you work with who use switches to communicate or control toys and devices, can you kind of describe the types of disabilities they have and what difficulties they have using mainstream devices?
Yeah, so I work with several students who have CP, who are in wheelchairs, whose bodies just don't work the way that they would like them to.
Rett syndrome, cerebral palsy, I mean, you name it. So
Gotcha.
they don't have the physical mobility to interact with toys, so they don't get that experience.
A lot of the kids that we use the switch toys with, a different variety of diagnoses from cerebral palsy. I've got some children with like more rare genetic conditions, that impacts their fine and gross motor skills. Some children that we're kind of working, like thinking about communication later down the road and the steps that it takes, like those switch toys are like a great introduction. Even some kids with autism who have a hard time with like cause and effect and, being able to like isolate their fingers and stuff like that. It's been pretty helpful with that. Children with CVI, that's another crew of kiddos that we typically try to bring these types of toys in for.
I would say a lot of kids have CP, a lot of other developmental disabilities, autism. There's a broad spectrum.
It would be not just children, it would also be adults. We service birth through 7 to 8 developmentally is what the items that we have in the center are designed for. However, we also work with the consumers that attend UDS in adult programs. The services that they need it's just about anything. It can be sensory type issues, it could be the need for communication devices, it can be the need for motor equipment, things like head tilt switches, toggle switches, button switches, people who have been maybe in an auto accident. We have adults that we serve as well that they maybe only are able to use their pincer grasp, and so we need a button type switch. So the toys that we're able to acquire fit within that realm of that birth through 6 to 7 developmental range, so they're appropriate for what RePlay provides for us.
Currently, I have a student who is 11. She is CP. She has a real tight contractures in her hands. She is able to work a switch and enjoys working them, but that's not real consistent for her. Most of her play activities, it does involve a switch and the toys that I've gotten up here. Her main educational part, though, is an eye gaze system. Tobii Dynavox is what we use with her.
So how does having these adapted toys available affect the children that you work with?
Oh, they love it because they can turn on a toy, and a lot of them have motor, disabilities as well. So just activating a toy and being able to sort of initiate any type of communication or play is huge to them.
Having access to switches, I've had kids who can use their hands, kids who use their head. It just really opens up possibilities for them, and they get to do something and then watch something happen and know that they made it happen, as opposed to someone else controlling it. It's just a lot more empowering, I think, for the kids.
Kind of helps also elicit the back and forth communication a little bit, realizing that if they touch this, something happens, and then we can kind of go into other types of communication that if they realize that if they touch the button that they can ask for more and things like that.
It just gives them an avenue to play with some things that they wouldn't normally be able to do anything on their own. As soon as my one little girl, the older one, as soon as she activates something, she gets really excited. In fact, half the time she can't keep her hand on the switch because she's so excited it flies away. So it's just they can activate things on their own. They can do some independent things. They can make some choices. It's just a good way to get them involved in their own education rather than us doing it for them.
These are toys that, it's the learning blocks of all the rest of it. When I work with little ones, whether we're working towards gross motor or anything like that, if you don't grasp cause and effect relationship, like they're not motivated, to kind of start like, oh, I want to try to go get that. So these toys, for a child that has limited mobility, really like provides that learning. It's easy for parents to use. It's something they can easily get repetitive practice with.
So using switch adapted toys is really important for them to have some sensory stimulation, to be able to participate with their peers in activities. We really like the toys that are kind of interactive. So the remote control toys, the kids really like those because they can drive the toy maybe forward and back, and then a friend will turn it, so it gets them engaged in playing with other kids, which sometimes other kids are a little bit nervous to do with some of our students. I think it's a huge quality of life improver because it gives them a way to interact with their environment. It gives them way that they can entertain themselves or interact with a peer to play, which is not something they have access to a lot. And it just gives them something to look forward to. I think it's a great addition to their repertoire,
When you have, a child who's in a wheelchair, when things are happening in a classroom, a lot of times they're just kind of sitting there. And because they are limited in what they can do, sometimes they're just kind of sitting and waiting. But when we have a switch toy, you can put on the tray, you can put a switch, so it gives them something to do, something to interact with. And one of the great things we like about the toys that we get from here, because we have high schoolers too, and a lot of the switch toys out there play baby music, little kid music, and they're like 18 years old. And their body won't let them interact with, but they don't want to listen to Elmo
Right.
So a lot of the toys have like pop music and popular music, so they can hit that switch and make the toy go, and it's not playing little kid music for them. Being a speech pathologist, I'm always looking for communication. That's my goal. That's what I'm looking for. And the switch toy, although it allows them to independently interact with the toy, it also allows me to have control of the toy, which gives them a chance to communicate that they want more, that they want to turn it on. So it is so motivating. The toy itself is so motivating with the lights and the action and that it's something that sometimes it's hard to find what's going to motivate them to want to communicate. Because to communicate, you have to want something. So the toys has just opened up that whole world that this is something that they really want, and so it often is the first step in learning how to communicate and being able to do that, which is a huge deal.
Using them allows us to level the playing field for the individuals when they're in a classroom type setting so that they can play with the same type of a toy. It creates greater independence for them so that they can function a little bit more in a fashion that is comfortable for them or within what their needs may be to make it a little less stressful. I have so many families that come in, a lot are from Summit DD, and it might be an 8-year-old who just isn't able to play in the same fashion with the kids, and so she just watches. And I know one toy in particular that Natalie provided was a Beavitat, and I love their toys, and it was a whale that had balls coming out of the spout. Yeah. Love that toy. And we have it in a non-adapted fashion, and then Natalie gave us one in an adapted fashion. Her ability to participate with that toy, you could see she couldn't do anything with that. No more we got the adapted toy, we put it with a foot switch. So her job was to just press it with her foot. Or we can have another child who's just pressing it and that's going to activate it. And then all the other kids can go and get the balls because they can't maybe, if there's motor issues, they can't run around to go get that. But she's able to be a part of that play activity, or they, whomever it may be that's using it, are able to be a part of that play activity to then put the balls back in, and then it's up to that particular child or adult to go ahead and activate and be a participant in it.
The disco turtle toy, I have a student that just loves that, and it's been a favorite amongst our students. Pressing the button and the lights and the sound, and they become very engaged in the toy.
There's a little girl that had a rare form of like a seizure condition mixed with other things. She was wheelchair bound and basically hand over hand for everything. We try to get her to interact and everything with stuff. We were using a max switch, for her to at least like be able to hit it and say hi and more. And when we began using more of like the switch toys, just, lit up, made songs and stuff like that, this kid that really didn't, again, everything was us doing it for her, is when she actually started like moving her hand and like, purposefully hitting it and stuff like that. And when you work for a long time on a certain skill and like something like that happens at that moment, it's huge. You know, it's like everyone's like, yeah.
The one little girl, you think that she's not really with you. Does not focus on you at all. But if we put a toy in front of her that she really likes, she lights up and she kind of focuses on that toy. So at least we know we've hit pay dirt. So it's a good thing for her.
There's just this one little girl that I'm working with this year. She has CP and has a lot of tone and has difficulty reaching and has difficulty playing with peers as well. So that kind of lights her up and lets her interact with her peers in the classroom. And to be a part of that is great.
Last year we got Hey Hey the Chicken.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a big hit for everybody in the room because it's obnoxious and, you know, it's very loud.
Yeah.
And so my student who would hit it would just like hit it nonstop. And the other kids just loved it and thought it was hilarious. And I think it's also nice for my students because most of them who are using the Switch adapted toys don't use their voices to communicate. And so having a way to like make noise and affect the other kids in the room, I think is also really important because usually it's the other way around and the other kids are being really noisy or obnoxious. It's nice to just be able to do that, you know,
Yeah.
and be a kid and be like, okay, that's enough hey hey, you know, because they don't get that. So I think it's nice.
I am Karen Neuer, and this is Beckett Neuer, my awesome, amazing boy. Beckett has a global CP. We had a pretty rough childbirth, so there's pretty extensive damage to his brain stem. And so, I mean, there's all sorts of things that go along with it. He does have a feeding tube, and his mobility is probably the most affected. So when he tries to do something, he tends to get really stiff. So it just, the Switch toys come in really handy because they're a lot more accessible. I guess a normal device, if it's something that's electronics, something that needs to be turned on, I mean, it's not even available to him. Turning on a toy, just the simple switch on the bottom, that little teeny thing, it's not going to happen. His grip is pretty affected. A lot of times he has a fisted hand, or the other hand could be a little bit more open, but like playing with a remote control and using your thumbs, it's not available to him. I think of this all the time. When we go out and about, when we go downtown in the summertime, Beckett's able to have a toy to play with. He's able to show off, hey, I got my little pet dinosaur here, or hey, I have this. But I mean, if he just had a regular toy, a regular remote, and it's just his way of interacting with people. He sees a dog, you know, he might hit the switch and maybe try to scare the little dog. It's really cute, and it makes it joyous moments as opposed to frustrated or saddened moments where, you know, he's now interacting, whereas before it was a lot more difficult.
So I'm Beth Sink, and this is Imogen Sink.
I'm Mike Sink.
So Imogen has been diagnosed with global developmental delays, so gross motor, fine motor, and speech. Currently, she's not able to crawl or walk, so we do have one of the cars from RePlay, and it helps her explore the world around her. And she is still working on her fine motor skills, so things like push, pull. She's good at blowing raspberries. So the toys help her with learning those fine motor skills, such as pushing and pulling. She's been really enjoying her car, driving around the neighborhood, and it enables her to kind of be independent in a way that she hasn't been able to be without the toy. And so I think the toys that we got today, it will be a first time for her to use other adapted toys, but it'll give her an opportunity to play in a way that typical kids are able to, in a way that's adapted to her needs. Her smile, we took her to Lakewood Park back when it was a little bit warmer, and you know, all the kids are running around and playing independently, and she had never been able to do that before. and she was driving her little car around, and the smile on her face that day, I will never forget it. It was like the happiest, most adorable thing. So it's made a really positive impact on us.
So Charlotte was born typical developing, and at the age of 3, she suffered a brain injury, and it was a hypoxic brain injury, so it has left her with some major physical, cognitive, visual deficits. So her disability is a hypoxic brain injury.
Can you kind of describe how that prevents your daughter from accessing devices?
Sure. Due to the physical limitations from the brain injury, she has limited use with her extremities, both upper arms and her legs. She does primarily use her legs to communicate via a wobble switch, and she uses a communication device for that. That's how she also uses most of her toys, although she does have some arm movements and is able to access the switch occasionally that way as well. But because of the brain injury, she's not able to move her body the way that most children are able to move their body and play with toys. These give her a lot more, access to and ability to play with toys and interact with her little brother and just us as well. Prior to Charlotte's injury, she loved all things music, lights, dancing, and a lot of these toys have musical pieces to them or movement, and they bring the biggest smiles to her face, and that has brought so much joy to our family to be able to see her enjoy something, and although it's in a different way, she she's still able to participate and play with toys, and like I said, it just brings a lot of joy to us to see her so happy playing. She did receive a unicorn toy that walks and makes noises and plays music, and that the first time, that was probably one of the first times that we saw some of the biggest smiles from her, and it's truly a gift for Charlotte to smile. A lot of children with the type of brain injury that she received have lost the ability to have expressions through their face, and so seeing her smile. But that unicorn toy is years later, it is still going and she still loves it the same way she did that same day, that first day that we had it for her. So